Good morning, folks. Welcome to my channel. It's Ann. Today, I want to talk about something that's very important, and it's something that a lot of us don't think about or have never heard about, and that is the way that hormones could work against you. Now, I know all those years that I yo-yo dieted, I was not aware of it. I didn't even think about that there could be a problem like that. I just thought it was my own um, weak self that wasn't able to, stick to a diet or anything. I thought my willpower was shot. But, we have hormones, folks, that are totally working against us. And I think that if we start to realize what's going on with our bodies, it might very well help us to get a little bit stronger and stick with it and help this diet work. So let's go over some of the things that go on, folks. So, the first one is something that most of us have heard about before, and that is insulin. And I have to say that for most of my life, insulin wasn't part of my vocabulary. I really didn't know much about it. I found out about insulin when I actually was when they diagnosed me as a pre-diabetic. So that's when I started learning a little bit about it. Of course, I still went on for years, and I didn't, I didn't lose the weight. I was still doing the yo-yo dieting, so even knowing about it didn't really help me. So that insulin just kept getting worse, and I was eventually declared a diabetic. And it's pretty hard if you're going to continue to eat carbs to try to lose weight either once you're diabetic or at any time really, because the carbs are keeping the insulin high, and when your insulin high is high, you're not burning fat. The insulin is causing you to store the fat. So can you imagine you're trying to diet, but yet you think you're eating a lot of healthy carbs, or that whole wheat bread, or you think you're doing well, but that bread is causing your insulin to be high. And human nature says that you're going to store that insulin, causes you to store fat, not burn it. So that's, if I would have realized that years ago and really, learned more about it, it might have helped me. It's, you're going to try to diet and not reduce your carbs, you're going against it, and that's not easy to do. It makes you hungry because your body's not getting the nutrients that it should have. Your insulin is high, and um, it makes you hungry. And even having snacks all day through the day, folks. If you're eating all through the day, some doctors will tell you to have 6 meals a day or something like that. Now, some people might have an issue where they do have to do that. It's not across the board that you should, only eat 3 meals a day or 2 meals a day or 1 meal a day. Some people might have an issue and they do have to eat smaller meals. And if that's the case, they do need to get their nutrients. So I can't say it's for everybody, but the insulin issue is one of the biggest things that will work against you. And I know that it worked against me for years. So let's talk about leptin. Leptin is a hormone that is released by your fat cells, and it'll tell your brain that you've eaten enough. Therefore, you stop eating. Well, if your insulin is high, it causes your leptin to stop working the way it's supposed to work. And therefore, I that's how I was. I never had enough, folks. I didn't know when to stop eating. I just kept eating until I was sick sometimes. It's like a terrible disease, and I know exactly how that works. And that is, you think you're enjoying it, but to be honest, the first part of your meal is what tastes the best. If you go back for seconds, the seconds is not nearly as good as the first. But your leptin will not tell you you're full, And that is something that gets destroyed with the carbs and with the high insulin. So keep in mind, it's called leptin resistance. And you will overeat. If it's not working properly, folks, you're guaranteed to overeat. Number three is ghrelin. Ghrelin is called the hunger hormone, and ghrelin will let you know when you're hungry. If you're eating high carbs, ghrelin will swing up and down all day long. That's that's what we do. We're hungry, a half an hour after we eat because our ghrelin is not working properly. And it's constantly being hungry, constantly having cravings. And the high carbs is another, this is what is destroying that as well, folks. When you eat low carb, ghrelin levels will become steadier. You won't be constantly hungry. You'll have fewer hunger signals. And that, of course, means less snacking. Your ghrelin will start to work the way that it's supposed to be. When you're hungry, your ghrelin will let you know, well, it's time to eat. And the leptin will let you know that you've had enough. As long as your insulin is staying steady, you're not having all these swings up and down. And that's the beauty of the low carb diet, folks. You get all of that under control. And as long as you continue to eat the carbs, it's not going to, and you're trying to diet. I know there's several different diets out there, but you need to get these hormones under control and you won't be working against it. They'll be working for you. They'll signal when it's time to eat, when it's time to stop. I mean, it's a wonderful thing. It's a natural thing. It's the way that it's supposed to work. And I know being on this low carb diet, it's working for me, folks. I don't have the desire to snack all day. I don't have the desire to eat so much food until I get sick. Um, so it's very important. Ghrelin is very important, just like the rest, folks. Number four is cortisol. We've all heard of cortisol. Cortisol is the stress hormone. And chronic stress and lack of sleep raise cortisol, which raises your blood sugar, which interrupts your insulin and causes that to get high. That's why stress is so important. If you could try your best to eliminate stress, you're going to do a lot better, folks. And of course, getting a good night's sleep and, it all works together to help to reduce the stress. So that extra sugar that the cortisol causes is raising that insulin and it's working against you. And I know they say that we do have they call it the pre-dawn phenomenon, where we do release some cortisol during the night to get us, or early morning, I should say, to get us prepared to wake up in the morning. Even that, and I think I'm getting that under control a bit. I don't think that's happening to me too much, but you don't want because it's going to drive fat storage too. That's if your insulin is high, it's all working together. All these different hormones are working against you unless you get off the carbs. Unless you get low carb, folks, you don't have to go completely off the carbs, but low carb is going to make these hormones work in your favor and not against you. High cortisol makes you want to have comfort foods, your sweets and your breads and stuff like that. The cortisol is doing that. So, getting that all under control is going to make life so much easier, and it's going to keep your blood sugar steady. And just keep in mind that cortisol is one of the big ones. It's not good. You need to keep your stress level under control, folks. Get a good night's sleep, drink the water. I mean, we all know all of that, but just realizing how your body is working. I think knowledge, they say knowledge is a good thing. And I think knowing that and realizing it could be a tremendous help, folks, in getting it under control. Number five is estrogen, mostly for us women. And Too much estrogen will cause body fat in your hips, your thighs, your belly. In perimenopause or menopause, dropping estrogen can also cause insulin resistance. Can you imagine that? You go through a natural process of menopause and your estrogen is lowered and it can cause insulin resistance. Now, folks, I got to tell you that I don't know all of this. And, I've been doing some research and trying to lay this all out. And if that's not going against you, I don't know what is. It causes insulin resistance. That's why it's so very, very important to lower your carbs. If you lower your carbs, folks, it's going to stabilize your blood sugar and your insulin fluctuations won't trigger fat gain as easily. I didn't know that. I honestly didn't know that, folks. But I didn't know that. Now, I knew there was problems that go on when your estrogen level gets lowered and, going through menopause and all of that. That's definitely no fun, but that's a whole different story. So this is good to know this. This is why it's so important as you get older, folks. We need to do what we have to get off those carbs because they are making life so difficult. We could do it. We could do it, folks, one day at a time. Number 6 is thyroid hormones. We've heard of that, I'm sure, many times. And they call that the metabolism regulator. Now, hypothyroidism, which is low thyroid, slows your metabolism. And that will lead to fatigue, to coldness, and to weight gain. Chronic yo-yo dieting, which I'm famous for, folks, and stress can weaken your thyroid function. So I'm sure I've had a problem with my thyroid and probably didn't realize it, but I've done a lot of yo-yo dieting and high insulin also interferes with your thyroid. And that's why it's important again. If you can get your thyroid under control with the low carb diet, um, and healthy fats and proteins, like we always talk about, that's what you want to eat. Healthy fats and proteins. There's plenty of videos out there to learn what's best to eat with the low carb diet. Low carb, keto, ketovore, carnivore. There's many, many videos out there to learn what's best to eat, folks. And that's going to reduce your inflammation. It's going to support your thyroid. And it's going to get all these hormones working the way that they're supposed to. The thyroid hormones are very important. And we have to think about them when we're trying to do the right thing, folks. We need to include them in what needs to be corrected. So let's talk about what they call the perfect storm, and that is cortisol and insulin together. The two of those, if they're too high, when you're stressed and you're eating high carb, insulin and cortisol rise together. So you got these two hormones rising. And that's when the body stores belly fat aggressively and energy crashes happen. I'm famous for that. My biggest problem is in my belly, folks. It's been well working at the jail. There was a lot of stress, and I've had stress in my life and maybe lack of sleep or something like that. And my biggest problem is in my belly. Um, you guys don't see my belly very often, but one of these days I'm going to show it to you. But that's it. That's the insulin and the cortisol working together against me. And the crashes, I used to, now not now. I'm doing, knock on wood, I'm doing very well. And I forgot to tell you folks, I lost 1 pound during the whole last month. But I'm happy with that because I was on vacation and I'm glad I didn't gain weight. I'm down 1 pound. So now I'm down 25 pounds since March 22nd of this year, for those that don't know or that are new here. But it's one reason people can't lose weight, even when they're barely eating, is because your insulin and your cortisol is high, causing you to store the fat. And if you don't realize that, which I didn't for years and years, it's virtually impossible to get rid of the weight. How hard is that? No wonder it never worked for me, folks. This is the way it has to be done. The carbs gotta go. Number 8 is serotonin and dopamine, and they call that the mood drivers. Now, sugar and refined carbs will spike the feel good chemical, but it's only brief. It creates an addiction cycle. You get this spike that makes you feel real good, and I know food used to make me so happy. And it creates an addiction. You want more and more, just like any other drug or alcohol or anything else that's out there. If it feels good, naturally you're going to want more. And that's what serotonin and dopamine do together. It affects your mood. And if it's going to make you happy, you want to go back for more. The downside of it is that when you crash, it leaves you anxious and depressed. And what do you want to do when you're anxious and depressed? You want to have more food to make you feel better. And boy, isn't that something? Isn't it amazing how that works? These things going on in your body, harming you. You don't they're working so much against you. Now, getting on the low carb stables your blood sugar, and it will stable your mood. You won't have these ups and downs. You'll be stable. You won't need those feel good foods for that short little spike that's going to make you feel good. Because it might make you feel good for a little while, folks, but in the long run, not only right after where you have the down mood and you're crashing, but your life is a struggle. And the more you do it, the more you struggle, the more out of shape you get, and the harder it becomes. There's an answer, and the best answer to correct it is going low carb. I can't stress it enough. I believe it with all my heart. It's working for me. I haven't stayed on a diet this long, and I don't know how long, for years. And it's working for me. No, I didn't lose a lot of weight so far, but my mood and my blood sugar is steady. I don't have cravings, folks. And it's not because I'm strong and I have a lot of willpower. It's because my insulin is down. I'm getting my sugar levels down. My blood pressure is steady. Um, I highly recommend going low carb. And I know a lot of you are low carb and you're doing very well and you're doing great with your exercise and everything. But for the newcomers that don't realize how important it is, I hope that this video is going to help. Number 9 is the growth hormone, and they call the growth hormone the youth and repair hormone. Now, the growth hormone helps to build muscle and to burn fat. But guess what? If your insulin is high, it will not work. If you keep your carbs low and you fast between meals, which I like to do a 16-hour fast each and every day on most days, your growth hormone can finally rise again. But that's why it's good not to have any little snacks throughout the day between your meals. Let your body rest. Let your body have a chance. Let your insulin relax a little bit and come down a little bit. And it's going to help you in the long run. We need our muscles, especially as we're getting older. They say that your legs, the big muscles in your legs, If you don't have strength in your legs are the first thing to go. And you need your legs, your calves. They pump blood up to your heart. You need your muscles. That's why a nice little walk, or even I've recently started doing squats, sitting on my chair and standing up, because I heard that's very good for your muscles in your legs. I don't do it faithfully. I'm going to start doing it more now that I'm getting settled back home again. I want to include that with my walking. Speaking of walking, I've been on my treadmill a few times, my walking pad, but I haven't been outside, and it's just been too cold, and I'm going to have to do, like I said, a lot of my videos here at home. But folks, the growth hormone, it's important. We need to build our muscles. We don't need insulin and everything fighting against us. And finally, number 10, folks, is adrenaline and non adrenaline. And these are called energy boosters. Now, when your blood sugar keeps dropping from carb crashes, your adrenalines pump out hormones to rescue you. But over time, this fight or flight response will wear you out, and that will lead to exhaustion and burnout. And I know for a fact that there has been many times I was in that state, just exhausted, where I just couldn't do anything, folks. And that could have been a big deal of why I was feeling that way. You're so exhausted, and you just don't realize, why am I so tired? It's not like I went out and did anything, but yet I'm just exhausted. Well, your adrenalines can cause that. You're burnt out. If you go low carb, it will prevent those highs and the crashes, and your adrenalines can finally rest and start working the right way. So that's about it, folks. I hope that helps you understand a little bit more about how your hormones, they're either going to hurt you, or you could use them. You can use them to get out of the hole that you've been in. Um, Other than that, folks, that's about all. I think this video has gone on for quite some time, so I'm going to say goodbye for now and tell you that I love you, and that I will see you in the next one, folks. Take care. Bye bye.